I still remember that night. The kind that makes the city hold its breath. Cold air, wet pavement. Lights that flicker more than they shine. I was sitting where I always sat, the corner of 7th and Broadway, between the coffee shop that sold comfort and the alley that didn't. People passed. They always did. Most didn't look. Some did, just long enough to decide I didn't exist. It's funny how invisibility feels heavier than pity. My name's David. Once people said it with respect. Now they said it only when reading my old ID, if they ever cared to ask. That night the street was busier than usual. Some charity event downtown, all suits and champagne and change the world speeches. I sat there, blanket over my shoulders, holding a cardboard sign that didn't beg. It just said, "Still human." A few folks dropped coins. Most didn't. Then came the car, black, shiny, loud enough to announce that someone important had arrived. A young man stepped out, sharp suit, phone in hand, voice like confidence wrapped in arrogance. He looked at me once, then laughed. "You people always pick the best spots, huh? Outside where the real money is?" I didn't reply. He kept talking. "You know, if you worked half as hard as you sit here pretending to suffer, maybe you wouldn't be down there." I looked up slowly. "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe I worked too hard for people who never looked down." He scoffed. "Save the poetry. You want $1? "No," I said, "and keep it. You'll need it more than I do someday." He frowned. That look people make when they realize someone they thought was beneath them just spoke their language too clearly. "Right," he muttered, turning away. "Good luck. With whatever this is." Hours passed. The rain started, soft at first, then harder, turning every streetlight into a blurred halo. I pulled my blanket tighter. Then I heard the sound again. Not rain this time, tires screeching, metal slamming. A car spinning out of control 2 blocks down, I didn't think. I just ran. People screamed, phones came out, but no one moved closer. The car had hit a pole, steam hissing from the hood. Inside was that same man, the one who'd laughed at me hours earlier. He was pinned against the wheel, bleeding, dazed. "Help," he whispered, barely conscious. I yanked at the door. It wouldn't open. Smoke thickened. Someone yelled to call 911, but nobody came near. So I broke the window with a loose brick, reached in, unbuckled his belt, and pulled him out, glass cutting my arms. The smell of gas stinging my throat. We stumbled back just as the engine caught fire. A small explosion lit up the rain like daylight. He coughed, choking, staring at me like he was seeing me for the first time. "You," he whispered. "Why did you—" "Because you're still human," I said. Sirens came minutes later. The crowd had grown, phones recording, lights flashing. I stepped back, sitting on the curb again, soaked and shivering. Paramedics surrounded him. Police asked questions, but nobody asked me anything. That's the thing about people like me. We can save a life and still disappear before anyone remembers we were there. The morning after the crash, the city felt quieter. Or maybe I just heard it differently. The sirens were gone. The puddles had dried. But the smell of burned metal still lingered somewhere behind my ribs. I found a dry bench near the old library and sat there. My jacket still singed at the sleeve, hands still shaking. Not from fear, but from something heavier. Gratitude, anger, confusion, they all mixed into one feeling I didn't have a name for. By noon, a woman from a nearby cafe came out with a cup of coffee. "Hey, are you the guy who pulled that man out of the car last night?" I looked up. "Guess so." "You saved his life," she said. "They were talking about it on the news this morning. Said a homeless man ran into the fire before anyone else did." I smiled faintly. "Must have been a different homeless man." She tried to hand me the coffee. "On the house." "Thanks," I said, "but I don't take charity." "It's not charity," she said softly. "It's thanks." So I took it. It was the first warm thing I'd held in months. That afternoon, I walked past St. Francis Hospital. Crowds gathered by the entrance, reporters, cameras, big lights, small truths. Then I saw him, the same man, clean shirt, bandaged arm, still pale. The reporters swarmed him. "Mr. Carter, how do you feel after the accident? Do you know who saved you?" He hesitated, eyes scanning the crowd. Then quietly, "I do." "Can you tell us his name?" No, he said. He wouldn't tell me. What would you say to him if you could? He looked down. Then back up, eyes red, that I was wrong about everything. I watched from across the street. Didn't move. Didn't wave. He wouldn't have recognized me anyway, not under the rain, the soot, and the silence I wore better than any name. A few minutes later, his car, or what was left of it, was towed past the hospital gates. Twisted metal, crushed glass, and somehow, still shining through the cracks, the same watch he'd been showing off the night before, its face cracked, but ticking. Time doesn't stop for guilt. It just counts slower. That night, I went back to my corner on 7th and Broadway. Same blanket, same sidewalk, but something had shifted. Not around me, inside me, a police cruiser slowed down near the curb. The officer leaned out the window. Hey, you David Reed? I tensed. Old habits. Depends who's asking, he smiled. The guy you pulled out of the wreck, he's been looking for you. Said he owes you his life, I nodded. Tell him to keep it. He's already paid enough. The officer tilted his head. You sure? He's offering a reward. If I wanted rewards, I said, I wouldn't be living out here. He paused, then nodded slowly. You're a good man. No, I said, just a man who remembers what it feels like to be saved. Weeks passed. The world moved on, but some stories don't stay buried. One day, a black sedan pulled up by the corner. A familiar voice said my name, not with contempt this time, but with weight. David, I turned. It was Carter. Bandaged arm gone, replaced by a small scar, the kind you don't hide because it reminds you of who you used to be. I've been looking for you, he said. You don't have to, he hesitated. I came to apologize. You already did, I said. You just didn't need words for it, he nodded. Tears welled, but he blinked them away. I don't deserve your forgiveness. No one does, I said. That's what makes it forgiveness. He looked down. Then, without another word, he reached into his jacket and set something on the sidewalk, a folded envelope. Don't say no, he said, just say thank you. Then he left. I opened it hours later. It wasn't money. It was a card. Carter Foundation, Emergency Shelter Initiative. And beneath it, in memory of the man I once ignored. I stared at it for a long time, then looked up at the stars that the city tried so hard to hide. Maybe they were always there, just waiting for someone to stop long enough to see them. It had been 6 months since the night of the crash. The city still sounded the same. Horns, footsteps, 1,000 lives running somewhere. But for me, everything had slowed down. They'd finished construction on the new shelter last week, right there on 9th Avenue, where the old bus station used to be. The sign outside read, Reed House, for those who deserve another chance. I didn't know whether to laugh or cry when I saw it. Maybe both. I walked in quietly that morning. No one recognized me. I liked it that way. Inside, the smell of new paint mixed with coffee. Dozens of beds lined the walls, and a small kitchen buzzed with noise, the kind of noise that feels alive. A woman behind the counter smiled. Morning, sir. First time here? You could say that, I said. She handed me a bowl of soup. You're welcome to stay as long as you need. I sat near the window, watching a man with shaky hands try to drink without spilling. Another one helped him, steadying his cup. They didn't know each other, but in that moment they did. Funny how people with nothing left still find ways to give. A few minutes later, the doors opened. A familiar voice said my name, David, Carter, but not the Carter I'd met before. Gone was the shine, the arrogance. He wore simple clothes now, rolled-up sleeves, and a kind of peace that comes only after storms. You found the place, he said. You built it, I replied. We built it, he corrected. The foundation started it, but the people finished it. They needed a name for it. I chose yours. You didn't have to. No, he said. But I needed to. He looked around the room. You were right that night, you know. I did need that $1 more than you, because I'd forgotten what it was worth. We walked outside. The sun was setting, painting the sky gold and gray, the same colors as that night's fire. You think people can really change? He asked. They already do, I said. Every time they stop judging and start seeing. He nodded, eyes misty. You ever think about moving in? The shelter could use someone like you, a voice they'd listen to. I'm better out here, I said, smiling faintly, still too used to the noise of the street. Besides, someone needs to remind them that hope doesn't start inside buildings. He laughed softly. You'll never take credit for anything, will you? I already did, I said, glancing at the people inside. Every life that finds warmth here, that's enough credit. As we stood there, a little boy walked past holding his mother's hand. He looked up at me, curious, then smiled. Are you the man from the story? I blinked. What story? The one about the man who saved someone and then disappeared? I smiled. Maybe, but the important part isn't that he disappeared. It's that someone else showed up after. The boy grinned, then ran off, his laughter echoing down the street. Carter put his hands in his pockets, looked toward the horizon. You know, I used to think power was about how many people listen to you. Now I think it's about how many people you choose to listen to. Then you finally understand, I said. That's the kind of power worth keeping. When he left, I stayed for a while. The sky turned dark, but the windows of the shelter glowed like soft lanterns in the night. I pulled my old blanket tighter, sat down on the curb outside the same way I had on 7th and Broadway months ago, except this time I wasn't invisible. I was part of something that would outlast me. Somewhere inside, someone laughed, someone else cried. And for once, the world sounded exactly the way it should. As the night grew colder, I whispered the same words that had once saved a stranger. Still human, and this time they felt lighter. The city never sleeps, but some parts of it don't dream either. I still lived near 7th and Broadway, the same corner where my story had started, and somehow the same place it kept returning to. People think streets stay still. They don't. They change faces every night. Some come, some disappear, and the rest of us just fade slower. One night I saw a boy, 16, maybe 17, huddled near the ATM with a backpack for a pillow. He wasn't used to sleeping rough. You could tell by the way he kept his shoes on and flinched every time a siren passed. I walked over, dropped an old blanket beside him. He startled. I don't need charity. Good, I said. Because that one's mine. You're just borrowing it till morning. He stared, half suspicious, half relieved. You live out here? I stay out here, I corrected. Living's a whole other thing. He smirked, then coughed. Rain started falling, soft, steady, familiar. We sat in silence until the cold turned our breath into fog. What's your name? I asked. Eli. You got somewhere to go? He shook his head. Got somewhere to be? He looked away. Not anymore. By dawn, I took him to the shelter on 9th. They didn't recognize me. Most people didn't, and that was fine. You can tell them Carter sent you, I said. But I thought you... Doesn't matter what they think, I interrupted. Sometimes people need a name they trust before they help. Doesn't matter whose name it is, he nodded slowly. When the door opened, warm light spilled onto the wet sidewalk. He turned back once. Hey, you sure you don't want to come in? I'm already home, I said. He frowned, then smiled, the kind that doesn't reach the eyes yet, but tries to. Then he disappeared inside. That night, as I sat near the alley again, I saw the same barista from months ago, the woman who'd once offered me coffee. She crossed the street holding a thermos. You still out here? She asked. Someone has to guard the ghosts, I said. She laughed softly. They say there's an angel out here, a man who helps the lost get off the streets. Angel's too big a word, I said. I'm just someone who stayed invisible long enough to see people clearly. Before she left, she asked, why do you keep helping strangers? I looked at the city lights, blinking like slow heartbeats. Because once I was one of them, and someone didn't look away. Later that week, a group of cops came through the alley, rough, hurried, clearing out tents before sunrise. I saw one shove an old man's cart aside. The man fell. I stepped in. Hey, I said calmly. He's not hurting anyone. Back off, one officer barked. This area's being cleared. Cleared for who? I asked. People who already have somewhere to be? He glared. You don't want to end up in holding. Wouldn't be the first roof I've had, I said. He paused, not because he cared, but because he didn't know how to answer someone who wasn't afraid. The sergeant came over, older, tired. He recognized me. "It's okay, fellas," he said. "This one's with us." "With you?" The younger cop frowned. The sergeant nodded. "He's the guy who saved Carter. The one they call the street guardian." They backed off. No one spoke. The old man thanked me with a trembling nod. "Don't thank me," I said. "Just pass it on." When the sun rose, the street was quiet again. Not peaceful, but softer somehow. I looked up at the skyscrapers reflecting orange light, then down at the cracked pavement beneath me. Between them was where I lived, between what people looked up to and what they stepped over. And for now, that was exactly where I was meant to be. It started with a photo. Someone took it without asking. Me, kneeling beside an old man, wrapping his arm with a piece of cloth. It spread online, captioned, "The Street Guardian." I didn't like that name. Guardians were people you looked up to. I just happened to look around. But soon reporters began to show up. Microphones, cameras, smiles that meant questions. One morning, a woman appeared while I was sweeping the sidewalk in front of the shelter. She was young, sharp eyes, voice that sounded like she'd never had to shout to be heard. "Mr. Reed?" she asked. "That's what they call me," I said. "I'm Emily Brooks from Metro Daily. We've been looking for you." "Most people stop looking when they find me," I said. She smiled politely. "You've become something of a local legend. They say you've saved lives, helped people off the streets, even stopped fights." "People say a lot of things," I said, still sweeping. "Doesn't make them true." "But the photos—" "Cameras see what they want," I interrupted. "They never show what happens before or after." She tilted her head. "So you don't want to be recognized?" "If I wanted that, I'd have kept my job." She frowned slightly. "You had a job?" "Once," I said. "A title, too." Both disappeared about the same time I realized they didn't mean much. She followed me around for the next few days. Never intrusive, just curious. She watched as I shared food with others, helped patch a broken tent, guided a lost teen to the shelter. One night, she finally said, "You know you could do so much more if people heard your story. If they saw what you do." I stopped walking. "You think stories change people?" "Of course," she said. "It's my job." "No," I said softly. "Stories show change. People do it themselves." She didn't answer. Sometimes truth doesn't need a comeback. A week later, she came back with a camera crew. I saw her from across the street. Ready, professional, hair perfect, smile rehearsed. I sighed. "Ms. Brooks," I said, "you're not going to find a hero here." "Then help me find the truth," she said. I hesitated. She meant it this time. So I let her follow. That night, we walked past the alley near the bridge, where the wind smelled like rust and regret. A man was yelling, drunk, angry, throwing bottles. Emily froze. "We should call the police." "No," I said. "We should listen." I walked up to him slowly. He was shouting at no one, or maybe everyone who'd ever walked away. "They took everything. My job, my kids, my life." I waited until his words turned into sobs. Then I knelt down beside him. "You still have breath," I said quietly. "That means you still have choices." He looked at me, wild, desperate. "You don't know what it's like." "I do," I said, "and I'm still here." Emily filmed the whole thing, but when the man finally calmed down, she lowered her camera. Tears ran down her face. "You didn't just stop him," she whispered. "You saw him." "Seeing's easy," I said. "Most people just forget how." She nodded slowly, then turned off the camera. "I can't air this." "Why not?" "Because it's not about you anymore. It's about everyone else." The next day, she published the story. No photos, no headline about heroes. Just a title, "Still Human." It spread quietly, not viral, not flashy. But people read it. People felt it, and that's all it needed to do. A week later, Emily came back to 7th and Broadway. "You changed my mind," she said. "I used to think stories make heroes. Now I know heroes make stories." "Then stop calling them heroes," I said. "Call them reminders." "Reminders of what?" "That we still have hearts worth using." It was one of those gray mornings that make the city look like it hasn't woken up yet. I was sitting on the curb, sipping weak coffee from a paper cup, when a police cruiser pulled up. Slow, like it wasn't sure if it belonged there. The door opened, and out stepped Officer Grant. I remembered him. He was the one who had stopped me months ago, when I was still that homeless guy causing trouble near the mall. But now, his face was softer, older maybe, or just tired in a different way. "Morning, David," he said. "Morning, officer," I replied, smiling slightly. Didn't expect a visit. "I've been paying my rent. Sidewalk's still free last I checked." He chuckled. "Not that kind of visit. I need a favor." That was new. He told me about a small grocery store on 5th Street, family-owned, quiet, nothing special, except lately it had become a war zone. A group of homeless men had been sleeping out front. The owner kept calling the cops. Things got ugly, shouting, shoving, one window smashed. "I tried talking to them," Grant said, "but they don't trust uniforms. They might listen to you." I looked at him for a long moment. "Funny, a few months ago you didn't trust me either," he sighed. "Yeah, I guess we both changed." When we got there, the tension was thick enough to choke on. 3 men sat outside the store, tattered blankets, plastic bags, and anger heavy in their eyes. The owner, an older man with a mustache and a white apron, stood by the door, arms crossed, muttering. "You again," he snapped when he saw Grant. "They scare off customers." "I can't run a business like this." Grant glanced at me. "Let me try something," I said quietly. I walked up to the men. One of them, big, scarred, eyes like broken glass, stood up. "What do you want?" he barked. "Same thing you do," I said. "Peace," he frowned. "You one of them?" "Depends what them means," I said. "If you mean someone who's slept on the street, yeah." That made him pause. "Then you know what it's like," he said bitterly. "No one cares till you break something." "Maybe," I said. "Or maybe no one listens till someone talks without yelling." The store owner came closer. "They're bad for business," he said. "You think I don't feel bad?" "But I can't have them here." "Why not?" I asked. "Customers get nervous. They think we're unsafe." "Unsafe," I repeated softly. "You think hunger looks dangerous because it's hungry." He looked away. Grant stayed silent. I turned back to the men. "There's a shelter 2 blocks away. They've got food, showers, beds. If you stay here, you'll keep getting pushed. If you move, you might finally rest." "We don't trust those places," one muttered. "You don't have to trust the walls," I said. "Just trust that you deserve to be inside them." After a long silence, the biggest man, the one with the scar, nodded slowly. "All right," he said. "We'll go." "But not because he wants us to," he pointed at the store owner. "Because you asked," I smiled. That's all I needed. They gathered their things and walked away, muttering but calm. The owner watched, uneasy. "You talk like you've done this before," he said. "Once or twice," I replied. "You could help too, you know." "Me? How?" "Next time you see them, don't see a problem standing in front of your door. See a person trying to find one." He didn't answer, but something in his eyes softened, like guilt, learning how to breathe again. When it was over, Grant leaned against his car, watching me with that same half-smile cops get when they see something they can't arrest, but wish they could protect. "You ever think about doing this for real?" he asked. "Working with us?" "I already do," I said. "We just wear different uniforms." He laughed quietly. "You know, the chief still doesn't believe half the stories about you." "Good," I said. "Means I'm doing it right." That night, I walked past the store again. A sign hung in the window, new, handwritten, "Free coffee for anyone who needs a break." I smiled. Justice doesn't always make headlines. Sometimes it just changes the sign on a door. It had been nearly a year since the night I pulled Carter from the wreck. Time had done what it always does, blurred the noise, softened the headlines, and left behind only the things worth remembering. I still lived where I always did, between noise and silence, between what people throw away and what they hope to find. Then, one morning, I walked by the shelter on 9th Avenue, and I froze. Through the window, I saw a man sweeping the floor, wearing a plain gray shirt. His movements slow but careful, like someone who'd learned what it meant to take care. It was Carter. He looked different, lighter somehow, not in weight, in burden, When he saw me, he didn't hesitate. He smiled. Not the polished one I remembered. A real one. "You finally came inside," he said. "Didn't plan to," I said. "Guess the rain made the decision for me." He chuckled, then leaned on the broom. "You heard about the expansion?" "Expansion? We're opening 2 more shelters. Same model. All funded by the foundation, but run by people who actually know the streets." "That's new," I said. "Usually people build things for others they've never met." "I used to," he admitted. "But you changed that." We sat by the window, sunlight filtering through dust motes that danced like tiny ghosts. "You ever wonder why I came back?" he asked. "Not really," I said. "Most people come back to finish what they started." He nodded. "That night I kept thinking about what you said. Still human. It sounded simple, but it kept me awake for months." He looked down at his hands, the same ones that once signed contracts, now calloused from work that didn't pay but mattered. "I realized," he said quietly, "I spent my whole life building things that never touched a life. So I came here, to start over." A group of volunteers walked past, one of them thanking Carter for fixing a broken light. He smiled, then turned back to me. "You ever think about joining us? Running one of the new shelters?" "I'm not management material," I said. "You're better than that," he replied. "You're real," I laughed softly. "Real doesn't fit into paperwork." He leaned forward. "Maybe not, but it fits into people. And that's all this world's missing. People who stay real when no one's watching." For a while, we just sat there in silence. Outside, traffic hummed like a heartbeat, steady, unbothered. Then Carter said something that caught me off guard. "You know, I forgave myself because of you." I looked at him. "You don't owe me that." "It's not about owing," he said. "It's about learning that guilt doesn't fix anything. Only change does." "Then I guess you've changed," I said. He smiled faintly. "Maybe, but you stayed the same." "That's harder." Before I left, he handed me a small object wrapped in paper. "What's this?" "Something I found after the crash. I thought it was gone, but it wasn't." I unwrapped it. It was the same silver watch, cracked face, hands still ticking. "You kept it?" I asked. "It stopped the night of the accident," he said. "I fixed it last month." He looked at me, eyes steady. "Every time it ticks now, I remind myself. Time's only worth something if you use it for someone else." I stared at the watch, then handed it back. "Then it belongs to you," I said. "You're the one finally using it, right?" As I stepped outside, the wind carried faint laughter from inside the shelter, Carter's voice among them. I looked at the building, its windows glowing warm against the gray sky. People say redemption is a second chance. I think it's just doing the first thing, right? After realizing how wrong you were the first time. That night, I sat beneath the overpass. Same place, same blanket, but a different silence. The kind that doesn't echo loneliness anymore, just peace. Somewhere in the distance, I heard the faint ticking of a watch. Steady, certain, alive. There's a spot under the 9th Street Bridge where the river sounds like it's breathing. It's quiet. Too quiet for most people, but not for me. That's where I go when the city gets too loud. When the noise of traffic and sirens starts to sound like all the things people never say out loud. Lately, my body had been slower, breathing heavier, nights colder, but peace. Peace was easier to find. Maybe that's what happens when you finally stop trying to be remembered. I still watched over the shelter from afar. It was bigger now. 2 floors, new windows, a sign out front that said, "Reed House, for those who forgot they matter." Every night, light spilled from those windows like gold. The kind of gold that didn't buy anything. It just warmed whoever it touched. And every night, I'd see Carter step out after closing, talking to the volunteers, laughing with the people lining up for food. He didn't look like a man who used to have an office. He looked like someone who'd finally come home. One evening he found me there, under the bridge just before sunset. "You always pick the quiet spots," he said. "Only ones that still listen," I replied. He sat beside me. Neither of us spoke for a while. The sky burned orange, then pink, then finally settled into the deep blue that hides everything except light. "You look tired," he said softly. I've been tired, I answered. Just stopped minding it. You should come stay at the shelter. We've got your name on the door after all. I smiled faintly. Names are for buildings. I'm just part of the foundation. He exhaled slowly. You know, people ask about you all the time. Kids, volunteers, even the cops. They all want to meet the man who started this. Then tell them they already have, I said. Every time they choose kindness, they're meeting him. The sun dipped behind the skyline, and the first streetlights flickered on. Carter stood, brushing dust from his pants. You really think one act can change the world? No, I said. But it can change a world. And that's enough. He nodded, and for a moment, we just listened to the hum of the bridge, the river moving like time itself. Before he left, he placed something beside me. It was the silver watch. Still ticking. It's yours now, he said. I think it always was. That night, I lay back against the concrete, watching the light from the bridge paint ripples across the water. Every tick of the watch matched the river's rhythm, steady, patient, alive. I thought about all the faces I'd met. Eli, the boy with no home. Emily, the reporter who stopped filming. Officer Grant, who learned to listen. And Carter, who finally learned what it meant to build something that mattered. If my story had ended there, that would have been enough. Because it wasn't my story anymore. It belonged to everyone who ever looked down and finally saw a person instead of a problem. Days later, they found me under the bridge, blanket pulled up, watch still ticking in my hand. No headlines. No crowd, just quiet. The kind I'd earned. Carter arranged a small memorial at the shelter. No speeches. Just candles lined along the windowsill and a sign in my handwriting framed above the door, still human. Months passed. The shelter grew. Another opened across town, then another. And every night, under every bridge, someone found a blanket folded neatly, or a cup of coffee waiting, or a message scrawled on cardboard. You matter. Don't forget, no one ever figured out who left them. Some said it was Carter. Others said it was the volunteers. But the truth was simpler. It didn't matter who. It just mattered that someone did.